All right. And what is going on, boys and girls? Oh, we got a little bit of echo. Hang on. Let's take care of the echo. I knew this was going to happen. Let's see. Hang on, guys. I think that might have been it. Yeah, that was the problem right there. What's going on, guys? You are checking out an all new the RCWR show coming at you this Tuesday morning of September 8th, 2015. I want to apologize to our audience. We're trying a little bit of an experiment over here. Let me see if I can, and that's not going to work. So we're doing an experiment. We're trying to work out the kinks right here. YouTube audience, you guys are fine. Thank you for checking us out right now. We're trying a little bit of an experiment over here on Mixler.com because we're going to be launching on that platform in a couple of weeks live. And I'm just fiddling around trying to figure out a thing or two over here, and it doesn't look like it's really working out that well. So what I am going to try to do is see if maybe this little trick might work. And if it doesn't work, yep. Okay, it's working now. Okay, good. So let's try that again. So I can probably like disconnect. Yeah, we'll see how. Well, let's leave that in. All right, let's see how that works out. All right, so you're checking out the RCWR show for Tuesday night, or Tuesday morning rather, September 8th, 2015. Couple of minutes past 12:30 right now here on the East Coast. We just saw the Stone Cold podcast with Christian and Edge go off the air, or Edge and Christian, for those of you that want to get technical. And I got to tell you, this was a really great Stone Cold podcast special on the WWE Network, of which I want to remind you guys that for those of you that did not get the opportunity to see it on the WWE Network, maybe at this point you don't have access to the WWE Network, I would highly recommend, if you are a huge Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, you're a Edge and Christian fan, that you go out of your way to check it out on the network. Fingers crossed that the audio version will be available later on in the week. If so, it's probably going to be released through the Stone Cold podcast over on Podcast One, just to give you guys a heads up in advance, because I know there's a lot of you guys that's looking for the actual footage itself of the Stone Cold podcast. And you should know by now that's like illegal streaming and all that, and the RCWR show doesn't do that over here. I thought that WWE and the Stone Cold podcast redeemed themselves very well this month by talking with Edge and Christian, for the simple fact that when it came to the Page appearance on the Stone Cold podcast, a lot of people that I had spoke with, friends, family, associates, they really did not like the Page special. They felt that it was just so random, especially since considering originally Hulk Hogan was supposed to be there, and the fact that they didn't talk with Daniel Bryan about his new book, which was kind of like a head scratcher. It's like, you know, what's up with that? It was just so weird. And then mostly everybody that I spoke with, they said they really couldn't understand what Paige was saying because she was just so energetic. She was just so lost in the moment. She kept playing with her hair and all of that. It was just so distracting. Everything just combined for a lot of people. They really walked away from the conversation that Austin had with Paige on the last Stone Cold special as just, that was just a throwaway. For some that I spoke with, they said that the Stephanie McMahon appearance that she did with Jericho was better than what went down with Paige. And that's saying a lot, considering a lot of people did not like all the tongue-in-cheek, the kissing up that was going on, so to speak, between Jericho and Stephanie. So Stone Cold Steve Austin, Edge, Christian, tonight, hands down, really, I truly enjoyed it. Just to give you guys a brief recap, because I don't want to be on here too long. I know some of you guys either got to probably go to work, get the kids ready for school in the morning, or maybe you are going to school in the morning. We're going to try to keep this short and sweet, see if we can do about maybe 30 minutes and be out of here. I liked how things pretty much, I'm just going to kind of go a little bit all over the place, not in particular order. I just want to kind of go over the juicy parts that for me really stuck out with regards to this Stone Cold podcast special tonight. One of the things that I'm sure was probably on the minds of a lot of you Edge fans out there is what exactly were the circumstances for Edge finding out that his wrestling career as he knew it was over. And he talked very candidly about that with Steve Austin, saying, look, when it all came down, I actually had got a phone call from Vince McMahon. And normally, apparently, Vince McMahon is pretty notorious for this. When he calls, he does a lot of fluffing around or whatever, but you can kind of tell that one of the main reasons why he's calling is the fact that there's something that he wants. All right. So in this particular case, Edge kind of knew something was up, but he wasn't really quite sure. But he knew with regards to this phone call that he was getting from Vince that it wasn't of a positive nature. It wasn't a happy tone, if you will. He could tell that there was something eerie in Vince McMahon's voice. And Vince McMahon just basically said, hey, look, as far as your wrestling career goes, it is over. As you know it, look, I just heard from the doctors and they gave me the results. That's pretty much it. You are done. And he encouraged Edge to get in contact with the doctors, hear the information for himself. But Edge definitely said he knows for a fact that for Vince, that was probably one of the most hardest phone calls that he ever had to make. As a matter of fact, Vince did say it was one of the most hardest phone calls that he had to make. And Vince McMahon has a reputation among certain superstars, divas, of not only taking them under his wing, but also kind of coming off like a parent to them, a dad, a granddad, etc. He's that go-to person. But Edge, he wallowed in sorrow for a little bit. And like after he got off the phone with Vince, Christian was actually the first person that he called and told him, what the hell? And then after he just really thought about it, he just picked himself up and said, okay, you know what? All right, my career is over. It's time for me to move on to the next phase of my life. And so it's funny because Steve asked him if he had any regrets whatsoever as far as his illustrious career goes. And it said, no regrets whatsoever. Steve, he's let it be no secret over the years, many, many times, especially if you've checked out enough interviews, specials, you know this for a fact yourself, which is the one blemish on his record. The one thing that he regrets is the fact that he walked out on the WWE at a time where they were really, really depending on him. And I just couldn't help but kind of take a step back to that and kind of say, well, what about the accusations going around there of you supposedly being physically abusive to one of your ex-wives years back? I mean, that's kind of like a regret as well, because that kind of had a little bit of, I remember when that had first came out on the wrestling news beats and all of that, a lot of people, they definitely had kind of looked at Austin a bit differently after that. They like the whole, hey, he's a rebel, gives the middle finger to the boss, he's fighting the system and all that. But I know for a fact, family and friends, once they have found out. Now, look, granted, whether it's true or not, I mean, we didn't necessarily see photographs or whatever, but if you kind of dig around a little bit, I'm quite sure maybe you might find an article or two of possibly maybe Austin being arrested for spousal abuse. Who knows? I'll have to research that, and we'll talk more about that on our Tuesday night podcast, which I'll give you the details about later on. But I'll definitely research that myself just so we can revisit this, make it come full circle. But I thought it was interesting that Edge, as far as his regrets go, maybe Austin should have rephrased it. Like, do you have any regrets as far as your personal life and the sport of professional wrestling goes? And then maybe Edge would have given like a two-part answer, because Edge said, no, he has no regrets. And I couldn't help but sit back and say, damn. So the stuff that had went down with Matt Hardy, and you were sleeping with his girlfriend at the time, the woman that he had plans on marrying and having kids with and all that, you don't have any regrets on anything that had went down right there. Now, granted, when you look back on that particular moment when Edge had hooked up with Lita behind Matt Hardy's back, and like the world just imploded for WWE fans when they found out about this, I mean, they were just despising the hell out of Edge at like every single arena. I still remember the infamous Bite This webcast with Todd Grisham, and I just remember when he was interviewing Lita, just how uncomfortable it was, especially when Matt Hardy had called in and all that. I mean, my God, you talk about uncomfortable working environment, as Matt Hardy was fired for airing out the laundry, everything that was going on, and just everything that had transpired for several weeks going into a couple of months of fans just coming together and saying, hey, Vince McMahon, WWE, we want for Matt Hardy to be back in the company. The way you guys released him, the circumstances for you guys releasing him is just totally freaking wrong. Shame on you, WWE. What the hell? And like eventually Vince McMahon, he realized, maybe we did make a mistake here, but also at the same time, I think we got something in the palm of our hands, which we can make a lot of money off of if we do this right. So eventually they went on ahead and they brought back Matt Hardy, and you guys that know your WWF Attitude Era history and all that, the rest of the story. But I thought it was kind of interesting that Edge did not say, yeah, as far as blemishes go, I wish things would have been entirely different with regards to that. Christian, no regrets whatsoever. As far as how they both wanted to be remembered, Edge, he doesn't really care how fans remember him and Christian, but as long as they just remember, as far as Christian is concerned, as long as fans just know in their hearts that whenever they saw him come out to perform, he was trying to do his best to give the fans their money's worth. That's all he really wants them to try to remember. And it's so funny, too, when you hear the questions that's being asked of Christian, and especially when Stone Cold says, you guys have been away for a while now. It's different for me because I get to come back like once a month, but you guys, it's like once in a year. If you're lucky, depending on your schedule or whatever, what's it like for you guys to be back and everything. I just thought it was kind of interesting what's going on with Christian, because I guess all of us missed the news flash that Christian is done as a professional wrestler. I was under the impression that he was out trying to take care of a concussion, and that concussion was like over and done with, and that maybe it was just a situation where he's just been helping out in the back, waiting for creative to figure out the right time and place to bring him back. But the way it's kind of sounding right now, it's coming off as if Christian is at a place right now where he's quietly retired or whatnot. I'm not really sure what to make of that, but when you watch the special, you'll definitely agree with me that it just kind of came like left field. Just overall, when you take in the entire conversation, Christian's coming off like he's done wrestling, at least maybe for the WWE. I thought it was really badass that Steve Austin had brought up how Christian and Edge have first came across each other. I mean, these guys have been lifelong friends for so many years, growing up in Canada and everything. And it was a really hilarious story, fun, interesting story at that. They basically ended up becoming friends as a result of like Christian having like some type of a ninja star that he was showing off to, I guess, classmates or whatever. And people were like, wow, that's pretty cool. And Edge thought it was a really cool ninja star. He wanted to know if it could really go through things. And Christian was like, yeah, I like throw it into trees, walls and all of that. It's really freaking badass. And Edge was like, well, can I see it? Can I, throw it? And he was impressed that it really did what it was supposed to do. It was like an actual ninja star. And like there were so many people that were very interested in acquiring Christian's ninja star, and he was getting offers left and right. And eventually something was supposed to be worked out between him and Edge, but he ended up changing his mind. He reneged on whatever deal that went down between the two. And pretty much like the friendship had just went from there. Edge always been a fan of professional wrestling since like the age of, I guess, 9, or at least he knew at the age of 9 he wanted to be a professional wrestler. For Christian, it was kind of like the same deal. Thought it was very interesting that Steve Austin asked them who was their favorite wrestler to go to growing up, at which both of them had said Hulk Hogan. And I would imagine when it comes to watching the on-demand stream, shout out to those of you that did not watch the special tonight, but you're going to watch it after you check out this review for it. Let me know, and I'll probably do it myself, but I might not get around to it promptly. Let me know if they edit that part out altogether, because I just thought that was very interesting that we had got the Hulk Hogan name drop. I mean, it's live. You can't really control it, but I would imagine I wouldn't be too surprised now. You heard it here first. Wouldn't be too surprised if they edit that out. All right. Given everything that's going on with the Hulkster right now. But I would think in this limelight, it's better that you get the Hogan name drop than the Jimmy Snuka. You guys that's been following your wrestling headlines, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And there was a little bit of brief mention of working on the independents, but the main focus was definitely on when they had first came to the WWF. And as you guys know your WWF/E history, you know, when Edge first came in there, he was a little bit of a loner at first. And then eventually there was like this one match he had where Christian had made his debut by interfering in that match. And then the storyline at that point was, oh, this is Christian's brother. I guess they say younger brother. I'm not really sure, but they just said this is Christian's brother, or Edge's brother, Christian. Sorry about that. And it just pretty much took off from there. And then, of course, when they got paired up with Gangrel, and it's funny that they had brought up Gangrel. I thought they spent just as much time needed on Gangrel as they did. I thought it would have been kind of nice, though, if they would have kind of brought up what Gangrel has been up to and all that. Not to really put too much of a focus on him, but just the fact that that was a critical moment where Gangrel, Edge, Christian, the Brood, it took off. And definitely, I got to give Edge and Christian a lot of props, because Gangrel is a name that we haven't heard of in the WWE universe for quite a long time. And they both had credited Gangrel for really being one of those type of in-ring veterans that could have went in an entirely different direction with them, as far as showing them the ropes, the do's and the don'ts, etc., and really took a liking to them and trying to show them the right ways of the business. And it was through working with Gangrel that eventually they were able to get those opportunities to feud with other tag teams and everything. But they definitely gave Gangrel a lot of props. Those of you that might be a little bit curious what Gangrel is up to these days, he's actually throwing it down over on the West Coast for the promotion Paragon Pro Wrestling. It comes on the Pop TV channel Saturday mornings at like 5-6 o'clock in the morning. You got to set your DVRs for that one. It's a very interesting promotion. I've watched a couple of episodes so far. I'm kind of coming around to it. Some parts are a little hokey dokey and just downright crappy, but there's other parts in there that's really pretty awesome. Definitely Gangrel is kind of a nice throwback, I must admit. Other things that were talked about, the infamous story about the What Chance. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of that, but that's basically the result of Steve Austin leaving a 6-minute voicemail message on Christian's cell phone at the time, like 12 years ago. And Christian thought it was so hilarious how, he still gets asked to this day if he still has that voicemail. And he's like, no, are you kidding me? That was like 12 years ago or something like that. And of course, Steve Austin definitely amazed at the fact that the What Chants are still popular today as it was way back when. I want to take this time out and I want to thank those of you for checking us out right now. If you're checking me out live on YouTube, can you do me a huge favor and leave a comment below? Let me know if you're hearing the audio okay. To my knowledge, I did not hit mute, so we should be okay, but let me know if you're hearing me and the streams are right. If you're checking me out via Mixlr right now, definitely do me a solid. And we have a chat room there as well. So those of you that, maybe want to pop in there and say hello, you can do that. Make sure you follow me on there as well. It's mixlr.com/TuneIn the RCWR Show. And I'll post a direct link as soon as I see somebody say something on YouTube. But for now, let's go ahead. Let's continue on the discussion of the Stone Cold podcast with Edge and Christian, which was very entertaining. It was definitely insightful. It was great just feeling the chemistry from all three of these guys. Of course, you have Edge and Christian on the Stone Cold podcast. You got to talk about the tag team division, which was definitely one of my greatest highlights of this entire special. Austin asking the guys what did they think about the current landscape of the tag team division, at which they say, you know, the tag team division, it's in a really good position right now, especially with the Dudley boys coming back. More than once, they talked about, all three men talked about how ecstatic they were that the Dudley boys had came back and that the timing of it was just right, because what they bring to the tag team division, their experience, them being veterans and all, they're definitely going to be able to take the tag team division to even greater, higher levels. And they just got goosebumps at the fact that the Dudley boys are back and everything. They talked about also, you know, a few other tag teams that have caught their eye that they really like. There's a team in NXT right now. I believe they have referred to those guys. I think it's Ty Dillinger, and I'm not sure the other guy's name. Somebody help me out before we end the stream, and I'll give the other wrestler that they mentioned credit. They also talked about Eric Rowan. They really, really love Rowan. They said that guy is money. You pair him up with just anybody, and you're going to have a fantastic match right there. But they definitely eyeballed him. They also gave a lot of props to the Usos. Is it just, am I the only one that misses the Usos? You know, I mean, it just seemed like there was a time where they were just being spammed to death, but I got to admit, as of late, I've really been missing them in the tag team division. I can't wait to see them come back. I think they're going to pick up right where they had left off before, and I expect bigger and better things to happen for their respective careers, for sure. And it should be interesting to see what happens with the Los Matadors going forward, just to kind of tease Raw. I'll be talking about that more on the podcast live this Tuesday night. But other than that, other things that was talked about as far as the tag team division was just the whole, how does it work? What makes a really good tag team? And for Austin, it's, you know, being able to see, like when he was in the Hollywood Blondes with Brian Pillman, it was like, okay, I see Brian, you know, he's doing this. He's going in this direction and I'm trying to match him. I'm going to go in that direction. Or maybe I kind of disagree with where he's going, and I think it actually needs to go this way, like as far as what's happening ring psychology wise in that tag match that they're having. And he basically asked Edge and Christian what were their thoughts, what was their philosophy when it came to their tag team matches. And basically Edge and Christian, they pretty much said any idea that they had when they were brainstorming in the back with the other guys, with the teams, a lot of times it would be a situation where out of the Hardys, maybe it would just be Matt pitching ideas, not Matt and Jeff, just Matt. Dudley's, it would be maybe Devon, or it would be Bubba Ray. But when it came to Edge and Christian, both guys, every single thing like that transpired that had to do with them as a tag team, they were always together, pitching ideas, trying to iron everything out. They just loved operating that way, and just being able to feed off of one another's emotion when it comes to their respective tag matches. That's what it really had came down to. So it was really nice and insightful to pick their brains from that aspect and just really get a better understanding where they were coming from as far as that. They also took the time out to credit Michael P.S. Hayes for really giving them, I guess you could say, the confidence and the platform to be able to perform, because Michael Hayes, as far as Edge and Christian were concerned, he saw passion in those guys, and for him, that was pretty much all that was needed to see these guys go forward. I see no comments coming in on YouTube. I don't know if you guys are able to hear me okay. Hopefully you guys are. If you are, give me a comment. Let me know if you can hear me. I see something on Twitter right now. That came from, hey, Zargon. Zargon, hit me up with a tweet. Let me know if you can hear me okay, man, because, I don't know. Sometimes there's a delay with YouTube. So if you guys are commenting, I'm not really seeing it. I'm also poking my head in the chat room here. I'm not really seeing anything in Mixlers. So I'm not really expecting that much interactions at almost 1 in the morning. It's all good, but I just spontaneously wanted to do this for you guys because I really had enjoyed the Edge and Christian special. Let's continue on. Just a couple more things I want to bring up. But Michael P.S. Hayes, they basically said, look, this guy saw a lot of confidence in them, saw a lot of passion, and he was always willing to hear every single idea that they had for their matches, their gimmicks, etc., good or bad. He was always willing to blow in his ear. And it was a great segue because Steve Austin, he asked him straight up. He said, look, do you think that Michael P.S. Hayes, the Freebirds, do they deserve to go into the WWE Hall of Fame? And they were like, yes, for sure. And I think the real question was, should they go into the Hall of Fame next year? And it's like a unanimous, yes, they do need to go into the Hall of Fame. Speaking of the WWE Hall of Fame, one thing that was stressed was for Christian, if he felt he was worthy of going into the WWE Hall of Fame. And as far as Christian was concerned, he said it's really not his place to tackle that question. He's not really sure. And at that point, Steve said, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to go right to Edge. Then Edge, he's like, do you feel that Christian needs to go into the Hall of Fame? And Edge, he didn't even take a second to think about it. He just, yes, he needs to go in. And as far as Edge is concerned, he's surprised it hasn't happened for Christian quite yet, but that hopefully it'll happen soon. And that, who knows, maybe it'll happen at next year's WrestleMania. But they had talked about beginning a new trend on social media, Christian for Hall of Fame. And it should be interesting to see how much momentum and steam that picks up as far as whether or not Christian might get in next year. With regards to that, I definitely feel that Christian should go into the WWE Hall of Fame. My only thing with regards to Christian, I just wish he would have had a more longer title reign with the World Heavyweight Championship belt the few times that he won it. He won it on 3 occasions, guys? All hot moments right there, if I'm not mistaken. It was kind of like he was a transitional champion. I'm not sure. Shout out to Zargon. Thanks, bro. He says, you're good. It's just a couple of people up watching it live. Yeah, like I said, man, I'm not expecting too much activity because, it's like almost 1 in the morning. Everybody's like, we got school back in session now, all that stuff. So I don't mind it. I know usually on demand, that's when the stuff will start to pick up momentum. So it's all good. But shout out to Zargon. Thanks, man. All right. Now, Mixler, hopefully you guys are able to hear me well, because I know there was some echoing going on earlier. But one other thing that was brought up, let me go back to the Hall of Fame thing with Christian before we move on. For me personally, I wish he would have had a run as the WWE champion. I really, really wish that. And it just sucks that it didn't happen, But I definitely feel, just based off of the current body of work as it stands right now, yeah, Christian should definitely go in. I'll go a step further than that. I think that after Christian goes in, I think that Edge and Christian need to go in together as a tag team for the next Hall of Fame. So, because when you really think about it, really think about it, as far as, next year's Hall of Fame, I'm just thinking about who all they can add and everything. And honestly, Christian is not a bad idea. And hands down, as far as who would induct Christian, come on, say it with me, it would have to be Edge. Something else that was nice was the discussion about Edge when he was in that rated R superstar phase. That much they did bring up. Steve did bring up the fact that he had enjoyed that time for Edge. He thought he was pretty despicable, and just all the stuff that he was saying promo wise, it was some of his best work, but It was like just complete other garbage that he was just spewing out. He really enjoyed his work as the Rated R superstar. There was also kind of like a love connection thing going on between Christian and Edge from the standpoint of it was like, how well do you know your partner, so to speak? It was like a game, if you will, at which Steve had asked Edge, okay, so what was like Christian's favorite match of all time? And Edge got it wrong. It turns out Edge's favorite match of all time was winning the World Heavyweight title the first time from Alberto Del Rio, if I'm not mistaken. For Edge, his favorite match of all time was taking on The Undertaker one-on-one, because he felt at that point, you know, he made it. He had finally earned the respect of his peers. Here he is throwing it down with The Undertaker. You know, doesn't get any better than that. I thought that was a very interesting pick right there of all the things that he accomplished in his illustrious career. Just the fact that he chose that moment. It was like, wow, okay, that's pretty badass. That's an interesting pick. Something else I thought was very interesting was when they brought up the fact of, okay, so look, you guys, you kind of like retired. You did it at like a young age. And we all know for Edge, he was forced into retirement. Christian, it was just kind of like, you know, I'm having a hard time believing Christian is retired, because I never did hear Christian say outright he's retired. But the way this podcast came off, you're like, all right, he's retired. But, you know, Steve Austin brought up a good point, which is, why is it that so many wrestlers get caught up in the moment, you know, when they're a wrestler and everything? Because he pointed out how young these guys were, in Edge and Christian, for going out so early, and you know, as far as making that transition into, okay, wrestling is over, now what am I going to do in my second life, career wise and all that? And his whole thing was, why is it so difficult for some people? And he admitted that for him, it was difficult when he was done, and there was a period where all he kept doing was hitting the bottle. But eventually he moved to Hollywood, and now he's pretty much involved in reality shows and all that. And Edge and Christian's take was very unique in the sense that they said, well, you know, for a lot of these guys, it's pretty much all they know. And, you know, they just keep doing it. They keep doing it. And they get so caught up in that character. They become that character that pretty much it's like, that's all they know. And, you know, I thought it was a very interesting point that they made, and I wish they would have magnified on it more, but it was just enough to really kind of make you go, especially if you're a older wrestling fan, like you're in your, you know, late 20s and up, you can definitely really understand where they're coming from with that comment. You know, kind of like when you look at guys like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, when you look at guys like Jake the Snake Roberts, you could even put Gangrel in there if you want, but Iron Sheik or whatever, man, Honky Tonk Man, and you see these guys, they're still running around, they're still wrestling, you know, they're wrestling in gymnasiums and all that. And you know, the money's not really that, you know, it's not all that. It's not WWE money. It's not even TNA money. You know what I'm saying? And they're on top of doing that, you know, they're going to the fairs or whatever that has a little small wrestling show going on, and they're doing the autograph signings and all that, but they're wrestling as well. And it's kind of depressing when you see that a little bit, because it's like, man, shouldn't they be in the back helping out with the boys, with the booking, and, you know, shouldn't they be like some type of a GM or something of that nature? So it's you know, it's definitely a little heartbreaking seeing some of these guys still running around. You know, unfortunately, it's also, let's not also forget that for some of these guys, they unfortunately did not budget their money right when they were at the pivotal of their career. So when you're at that height, you know, mom always says, you know, save your money, save your money, save your money. And for a lot of these guys, they did not save their money. They just kept blowing it up in the most silliest ways, and that's why they're still working. No different than when you see a 70-year-old person as a bagger at a grocery store, and you're like, why is this person? Probably because they did not invest enough money tuck enough money to the side for a rainy day and all that. Or it could just honestly be, as the case with the wrestlers that I just named and many other wrestlers that still find themselves wrestling when they shouldn't be wrestling. For some of them, maybe it's just a case where they just love to do it. They love the interactions. And you know what? If that's the case, by God bless them. But great discussion right there between the guys with regards to that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that was really kind of ear grabbing that I had really enjoyed. There was definitely some funny road stories that they had talked about. I thought that was pretty cool. One oversight that I wish would have been tackled was Triple H and Edge. Because I know for like the longest time, there's been like this weird little rumor that's been floating around that Edge wasn't really a fan of Christian, like even as far back as the Attitude Era, and that basically when Triple H was kind of like starting to come more and more into power. Like I remember there was this one situation where I think it was Triple H politicking his way to have Edge's hair be cut because Triple H should have been the only guy on the roster, male-wise, with all the pretty long hair. And it got to Edge, and Edge is like, hell no. This is what makes my character. I'm not cutting my hair. I kind of wish Steve Austin would have went into that particular area, kind of, fact or is that myth, just debunk that whole rumor altogether and also tackle the whole supposed, because, I mean, wrestling fans, like some wrestling fans, not all, but some, they have this world where like these rumors after a while, it's like, it's got to be the truth. And I've seen so many people over the years say, oh, Triple H hates Edge or whatever. So I kind of wish that would have been tackled a little bit more. It did not get tackled at all. I wish it would have. I'm trying to think. Other than that, I think that's it. I think overall, I'm not really missing anything else. I'm just talking about the main hook, the main meat and potatoes of what was really interesting about this special itself. Great road stories. I'm not going to spoil that for you guys that haven't watched it yet. There is really good, hilarious story involving Rhino crying. Of all the things, Rhino crying. You definitely need to check that out. That was pretty hilarious. But yeah, I would definitely say this podcast special gets a pass. They definitely redeem themselves. I think, with regards to the Page special that they did, that thing was just so flat. They did a really good job with this one. I'm actually looking forward to the next one. Honestly, personally, my personal preference, guys, I wouldn't mind it if WWE, with regards to the Stone Cold podcast specials, if they kind of went back and forth, like if 1 month they talk with like some veterans, and then the next month they talked with like somebody current on the roster, somebody fresh, somebody new. Because I'm already looking ahead, and I'm kind of like, well, who could Stone Cold like speak to next? Please don't hate me for saying this, but honestly, I think the next person that Steve Austin should interview should be Eva Marie. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. Love the girl or hate her. One thing you have to admit, she definitely gets a reaction, whether it's guys that are just oohing and on over how she looks physically. You can't deny that. You can't deny, like, as far as the women down there in NXT goes, her, Alexa Bliss, hands down. I'll put Leva Bates in there too, aka Blue Pants. Prettiest women that are down there, man. But my God, Eva Marie, she gets a reaction, whether it's good or it's bad. And I know she's been heckled because of her in-ring ability, and she just has that general heat from fans because they just feel like she has no business being in the WWE. She has no business being a diva. She has no business being near the ring. There are people that just genuinely hate her freaking guts. And you know the old saying, as long as you're able to get a reaction, that's what it's all about. So good or bad, I think Eva Marie would be an interesting one for Steve Austin to interview, because I would love to just see him go no holds barred, asking her, all those questions, about what it's like at her receiving end to be taking the ridicules, the heckling, as it expands even to social media and all that. It would be really nice to really dig deep into the person behind the Eva Marie character. And they can even do it like that. Be like, look, this isn't Eva Marie talking. This is blah, blah, blah talking. Just how they can have Triple H be on there and they can address the fact that he's Paul Levesque and all that. I think they need to go in that direction with Eva Marie. And look, from a standpoint, if they're trying to do what they can to get her over even more, I think that would be the right platform to do it on. Really ask those hard-hitting questions. I promise you this, her appearance on the Stone Cold podcast, and this is coming from somebody that's not even really a Eva Marie fan. It's not like, if you ask me straight up, who's my favorite girls right now, I'm trying to keep it on the Stone Cold podcast, but just, I'm going to go on the side for a hot minute. My favorite girls right now, Sasha Banks, Charlotte, Alexa Bliss. Let me see. Who else do I like in there? I like Naomi. My list is pretty short. Those are my main girls right there. My list is pretty short. So, Eva Marie, I'm seeing what she's doing so far, and I think she's off to a decent start, but she has a long, long, long way to go. But I like what I'm seeing of her so far. But I promise you, her appearance would definitely do better than Paige's appearance on the Stone Cold podcast. Don't you think? Sound off, let me know. But hopefully that'll be the next person. Or, if they're going to kind of go the young route, maybe they could talk with Daniel Bryan. I think it's just kind of silly that they've yet to speak with Daniel Bryan, who is like a New York Times bestseller, and they've yet to speak with him about his book, the stories that he would be able to tell. I think him and Austin would just have a lot of fun bouncing off of one another. So hopefully that'll be the next one that'll happen. I know we got Undertaker Sting. That's supposedly in the works. I'm actually looking forward to that. Let's see if we got any comments coming in. I'm pretty much done talking about the Stone Cold special that aired tonight, but it definitely gets my approval. You guys need to check it out when you guys get the chance. 9 times out of 10, WWE is probably going to do some type of a network special deal where you can check out the network for like the entire month for free or whatever. So I would definitely recommend that you guys take advantage of that if you don't have the network, so you can see this Stone Cold special. And it looks pretty quiet, so that's good. There's not really that many people watching right now, but for those of you that are checking out the stream, thank you. And before you call it a night, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Google Plus this, Facebook it, retweet it. One of the many ways you can spread a good word about the content. And if you're listening on Mixlr, definitely give me a heart. Make sure you're following me on there. It's Mixlr, mixlr.com/the RCWR Show. Speaking of which, Tuesday night, we are doing our thing live on Spreaker.com for an all-new RCWR show. I'm going to talk about key points from tonight's WWE Raw. What I think needs to happen to Los Matadors going forward. We'll also talk about the very latest and what's going on with Zara Scriber, Seth Rollins' girlfriend. Apparently, she issued an apology, but it has a lot of people saying that wasn't really an apology. We'll give you the details on that one. We'll also have, I think we'll be able to squeeze in a shoot DVD review of Eddie Guerrero. We'll see. It just depends on how my schedule is going to be looking, but we'll see what we can do with that. A whole lot of stuff we're going to be talking about, all the very latest in wrestling news and beyond. You know how we do it. So make sure you show us some love. Check us out Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker.com. And on that note, that is going to do it. I wish you guys a very good night and a very good morning. Thank you so much for staying up late, joining me for this stream. If you're new, definitely subscribe, man, because we're always posting a lot of great goodies, man, whether it comes to breaking news, doing reviews, interviews. We got a little bit of something for everybody. So do hit that subscribe button. All right, guys. Wishing all y'all to be safe. Most importantly, be kind to one another. Everybody, take care. Adios.